First thing on the agenda, we'll say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a quorum. All members are present. Great. We have a verification of the posting, Jackie.
Yes, I have pictures if anyone wants. I put, Monday night I put the two up at the grocery store and the post office, and I put the one on the door out here Tuesday morning.
Great, thank you.
Where was it at the post office? Because I was there today and I didn't see
It was, I put it up, Monday night
where.
on the bulletin board opposite box 145, which is where our library's mailbox is.
Excellent. We'll move to the approval of the agenda, other than the fact that I have the wrong date for the next meeting. And what is that date? December? I don't have my calendar. I did look it up when I worked on the agenda, but
It will be.
didn't type it in.
It's the third Wednesday, right? The 18th of December?
I think that sounds right.
Tell them to click on the
Anybody
black
else have a
bar
comment
on the library's website.
Agenda?
If I may, just, I'm wondering, I mean, I know I've seen this before, approval of agenda, but the question that it brings up is, it's a violation of open meetings law because it's already been posted, it can't be changed.
Right.
So, wondering what is the approval of the agenda purpose? It's, cause I mean, we can move things around on the agenda.
We can move things around.
We can't take things off, we can't,
We can make a correction like the date or something.
Okay.
I don't know, but it's a good question.
just curious. It's been in my craw.
Do you have a motion to approve the agenda?
Sure, I move to approve the agenda,
We have a-
as corrected,
As corrected.
and that's the corresponding date.
I'll second.
Do we have a second? All those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Opposed? Sorry, opposed?
I abstain.
Abstain. One abstention. John, thank you. Okay, let's move to guest comments tonight. Remember that we have a 2-minute time period, and I think I can do the timing of it.
An official, if I may, you're officially saying that even though the president of the town board said, I could get up, leave the board for a moment to make a guest comment, and then come back, you are saying you are not going to allow that?
That's correct, and I can talk about that in my president's report, which happens after this, but I'll address it then.
I'm sorry, could I ask that it be part of the minutes that what we just talked about? That you made the decision that the town board president.
I will put it in my president's report, and therefore it will be in the minutes, because it will be part of I have a couple of things to say.
To get it in the minutes, it has to be moved, seconded, and voted on. That's the next.
Would you like it as part of the agenda next time? And if so, please let me.
You said that last time, and I'm looking at this and what we talked about.
Yeah, no one said that it should, requested that it be on the agenda, so you all have a chance to let me know what should go on the agenda. Yes?
Just, I'm looking here on line and it says that a library board member can generally speak as a citizen at a library board meeting during the designated public comment period,
but they should typically identify themselves as a board member and may need to follow specific guidelines regarding when and how they can speak depending on local rules and open meeting laws. So,
That's what I was, we talked about it before.
so some
That I
clarification
was
on the
going to get.
local rules and open meeting laws, okay, great.
Okay,
My name is Beth Good from Gordon, Wisconsin. I wanted to recognize the Iron Rivers Library's head librarian, Jackie, for the extraordinary work that she is doing to create programs that foster creative, positive ideas and activities. They cut across all ages and types of community members and politics. An example of this would be the drumming activities that she mentioned last month. Having received my graduate degree in performance from the Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, I am aware of the positive effects the arts and specifically music have on people. As an undergraduate student, I volunteered with other students and faculty members to create a music program at Parkland's Mental Hospital. I also worked at the St. Joseph's Home for Disturbed Children in Superior one summer, where we held our very first concert, and they were able to shine. I have reviewed countless studies from neurologists and scientists that show the positive neural, physical, and emotional effects music has on individuals. In fact, Medicaid is now covering therapeutic drumming activities for Indigenous people in some states as one of many healing activities. I just want to let you know how fortunate we are to have a librarian who looks beyond the threshold to bring people over it. Thank you, Jackie, for your great choices.
thank you. Anybody else? Do we have anybody online that?
No. Someone is trying to get through.
Tony, she's not gotten on yet, she's not seeing the black bar on her laptop, I'm gonna get mine out and see if I can help her.
Okay, I was gonna say, can we just call her and see if she can listen that way?
It's Paula.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, but do we solicit people to be online?
No, she's trying to get online and is unable to connect. Sorry.
Okay, let's move on from your comments. Do we have Zoom participants tonight? How many, Jackie, how many people do we have online tonight?
no one as of right now,
Okay,
but someone is trying to get.
And could that be because people are having trouble connecting?
It could be, yeah. I put the link on the black bar on the library website, but it's gremlins.
And that's usually where you put it,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Okay.
well, we'll just continue on. Correspondence, do we have any correspondence?
We did not get any correspondence.
No correspondence this month?
That's sad.
Yeah. Okay, approval, let's move to approval of the minutes. If you could take a look at the minutes from last month's meeting. It's on the front and back of your page there.
If I may, I just want to make sure I understand.
Uh-huh.
There was absolutely no correspondence received from anybody that the board should have an interest in.
Not that I'm aware of. Nothing was, came through that said specifically this is for the board of directors. Anything that came through was like questions about printing something or correspondence about asking questions about how to find materials.
Okay.
So there was nothing
Nothing came
specifically
immediately.
for the board, no.
Okay, let's talk about the minutes. Does anyone, if you want to take a moment to look through them, if you haven't seen them, I already know.
My only comment is that I assigned myself as interim secretary because that's what I'd done previously, but I'm an elected secretary, right?
Yes, we should correct that.
So, okay, so I'll strike interim.
And with that being struck, I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
I think we can, I'm going to call the minutes approved.
Okay,
But I'm allowed, if I'm gonna vote no, I'm allowed to explain.
We're not gonna vote, we don't have to vote on the minutes. With that correction, I so move that the minutes be approved. It's not something that we have to vote on. And we don't believe we did that last month either. I might be wrong about that, but. Okay, reports. First of all, my report. I have, Jackie has given me the contract that is the service agreement with Northern Waters, and I have that in front of me to sign at some point. But it's important that if anybody wants a chance to look, I won't do that today, in case someone would like to look it over before. And then if you have some questions, if questions that are enough for an agenda item for next month, then it has to be done by the end of the.
I believe it has to be done by the end of the year.
End of the year, got
Yeah.
it, that's right, end of the year. So if anybody has any concerns about this contract, I'd like to actually know that now. If somebody would like to have a copy before I sign it, so you can have a chance to look it over. And if not, I can take it after this meeting and sign that.
Am I correct in assuming that it's the same contract that we sign every year?
Yes.
Then I don't need to read it.
Somebody's card.
So, yeah, so this is the 2025 member library agreement. So does anybody that wants to take some time to look at it?
Member library agreement.
Oh, yes, Northern Waters Library Agreement. Okay. The other thing I would like to just ask, so an update on the board appointments for the library board from the town board is similar to what I said last month. I'm not sure what is going to be happening. The town board has not decided what to do about the appointments for the library board. Names have been submitted to the town board chair that we've had here, that I've sent around to everybody over the last 2 months. And so they have some possible names that's required by our bylaws, is to submit names from the library board for a possible appointment. So that's been done, and then now it's just a matter of what the town would like to do about the appointments to the board. Yeah.
Excuse me, have there been more people added since the last meeting?
No,
So no new names have been submitted?
no.
Okay.
Since the last meeting, I mean, I don't think there's any names that we have that everybody hasn't seen the, and if anybody wants me to send around the letters from the people, I'm more than happy to do that again, so. Great, so, speaking as a citizen, I think, John, you have requested more information about what I found. I have not found, it's very similar to what Jan just said, is that it is unclear about board people speaking as a citizen. I'm saying tonight we're not going to do it. I will be happy to send you what I have. I will also, I made a note to put it on the next month's, as an actual agenda item that we can have a whole discussion about it.
So again, if I may, the basics for small boards that you handed out last time, this is an example that all members have equal rights, privileges, and obligations unless you see it differently, and that there is a full and free discussion of every main issue. It's a basic right unless you say differently.
There will be a full discussion by all the board members as an agenda item at the December meeting. Tonight, really my last thing is we have a closed meeting tonight, so to talk about some personnel issues, so when we're done with the agenda tonight, we'll be going into closed session. I'm sorry that people have to go. That's it. Friends of the Library,
Nothing to report.
thank you. Secretary's report,
Nothing to report.
nothing to report. Treasurer report,
I'm in trouble. I came and got the stuff yesterday and I have not had the time. It, one hand, it is causing me a lot more time than I thought, so I'm not prepared. With the secretary's report, I can see that very little money, changed from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. And there's like, 2 bills that are going to need to be paid, which you still have that checkbook, cause I forgot to get that box from you last
Okay.
month.
okay,
So, I guess I'm pleading,
good, well, let's.
sorry that I'm,
We'll just do the catch up next, catch
In
all
the
of it up
next-
next month, but I'll catch up with you on that, those bills to be paid
okay,
tomorrow.
okay, that sounds good, thank you. And I could be fired from this job, it would be okay.
Sorry to butt in again, but last time she brought up the idea, or one of you brought up the idea of a fiduciary. And we do have a fiduciary responsibility as board members. And that means we are agents. We spend other people's money. And I'm just wondering if we actually do due diligence in doing that when it comes to okaying bills that we really don't have anything other than just this information, okaying books that are being purchased without any description of the books or any type of way to verify that the money is being spent in the best interest of the taxpayers.
What are you recommending, that would you like to put that as a discussion item for next month on exactly how we?
Well, no, because
And
we
what the
voted down,
process
I'm
is.
just bringing it to everybody's attention. Okay, we do have a fiduciary responsibility, and in my opinion, we are not meeting that because we have no information, real information about what we're okaying.
You're stating that the descriptions that we get, all of this information we get about our purchases are not enough, is that what you're saying? Like,
Okay, I'll go with that.
so for example, if you look at that, I'm just trying to understand, really trying to understand what you're saying. Just give me one, what would you
Well, I
like
don't
to
even
see
see- I don't even
for
see
a
one
fiduciary
here.
responsibility other than what we're already doing?
I don't even see one here unless there's a list of new books that have been purchased. Because without knowing what the books are and what they're about, there's no way that we ought to be making decisions about paying for things that we don't even know what they are.
Here are the bills for all the books that I've purchased this month, if you wanna look through them.
So, yeah, I mean, in general, I'll just make it, so that's helpful to understand what you're saying. So the board, our job, in my opinion, at this point, is not to go over every single book and exactly what it's all about. That's why we have a library director, they're making those decisions. We have a fiduciary responsibility to understand where all the bills are being paid, so we have a pretty good description of all the things that we're purchasing and the titles of all the books. So going in, what depth we go into, I think we do enough. And of course, we can always ask the library director anything that we want. And as you just said, if there is, sorry, Jackie, that's the title, what is that you just gave him?
Those are the bills for Baker and Taylor, which has all the titles listed on it, so that way he can look at all the titles if he so chooses.
Well, yeah, but titles are one thing, you know. The Hunt for Red October, what was that all about? Okay, the title doesn't really describe what we're paying for. It just gives a title, but.
Okay, so I think, yeah,
I don't see it, John, I don't see it as the board's responsibility to vet specific materials and titles. I think the financial fiduciary responsibility for the board is to oversee the budget.
yeah. And I think we got a lot of information about what's being purchased in this library in quite a bit of detail, but thank you thank you for the input.
Well,
Um,
can I
anything-
just mention
yeah.
that the other part of it is, a lot of these bills go directly to the town, don't they, to get paid? So
Right.
they're actually checking through those bills as well.
Yes,
And Jackie, if I can ask, is this fairly typical for a report for a library director to give to a library board?
It's ones that I've been using for 20 years.
Okay.
That wasn't exactly what she asked.
I've only been at 2 libraries, and both of them I have used something very similar to that. I have not been at any other libraries to experience them, but those are the 2 experiences I have. The 20 years that I've been a librarian are that type of format.
okay, thank you. Is there anything else on the treasury report? Maybe, approving that, we should just do that next month.
That would be great.
So we'll just combine them before. I know that when I first came here, that was being done, so.
Thank you for that.
Okay, library director's report.
Okay. I have it here. I didn't rearrange myself here a little bit. There we go. Okay, story time is, which was started in September. We are gonna be going through November 21st, which is tomorrow, so we'll have our concluding one then. The groups have been arranged around between 6 and 8 little people, and we will probably end them after tomorrow until spring, when it's a little warmer for the little people to be walking, because a lot of them walk down from Smiling Faces, so we like to keep that in mind when we schedule those. On November 26th, the library will be hosting Jeff Renicky, who he will be discussing night photography. It will be starting at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, so
That's a wonderful thing.
I'm looking forward to it.
If anybody can come, just if I may, comment on, thank you for booking that, because he's famous.
Yes,
He lives
yes,
right
and
here,
he-
and he works for National
And
Geographic.
I
and
have
all
to say,
different
when I
places.
asked what
That's
his
wonderful.
honorarium was, he said, just make a donation to the Apostle Islands thing. I'm like, okay, we can do that, so. Yeah, so,
Same town meeting.
yeah, so we're looking forward to that, so.
Jackie, getting back to the story times,
Mhm.
we're gonna have one more in December, you said, just for the minute?
Oh, just one, or tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
yeah, tomorrow at
And then
9:30.
not until-
And then we will, pause for the holidays and also January and February, and then try to start either end of February or first part of March again. The middle school book club, which was scheduled for November 25th, has been rescheduled for December 6th because the Tigers were going to be going to Rhinelander for football, and there were a lot of students that wanted to attend. Even though they lost that night, they had a really good season, and so a lot of people enjoyed that. We're going to be now doing it on December 6th instead, and we're going to be discussing The Eyes and the Impossible and Amari and the Knight Brothers. Both of those are Newbery, one is a Newbery winner and the other is a Newbery honor book, I believe. We have 2 upcoming book groups for adults. One is going to be the 3rd Thursday of the month, which actually takes place tomorrow. And it's going to be called, it's To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, 1927 copyright. And that'll be at 6:30 p.m. here at the library. Then the other one will be taking place on the 4th Tuesday of the month, which is going to be November 26th this month. And that'll be at 1 p.m. here at the library as well. And we'll be discussing When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. And both meetings are open to anyone who'd like to attend. Neither book is super long, so if, well, the one tomorrow might be kind of hard. But if anybody wants to join the one on Tuesday, we have the books here in the like 200 pages or less. So it's easy to add that if people want to join. I sent in a grant to Wild Ones for $500 to install native plants in the green space across the way. You each received a diagram. One side is the before, and the other side is, if we get the money, what's going to be planted there. It's mostly going to be along the fence that's going to be installed, and then on both the north corners of the property. The one on the northwest corner will be more of a rain garden because it's very low and kind of boggy. And then the one across the street from this part of the building will be a butterfly garden. So that's the hope, so.
Love that idea.
Give us some plants for that. I've been continuing, meeting with the People to People Action, Committee, and we're working on battling loneliness and isolation, hence the drum program that we had discussed last month. I had talked to the donors of the funds that I was thinking of using for drums, and she was all for it. So if the board is okay with it, I plan to move forward with the drumming club. We will probably be meeting at the library, seeing what works, either before the library opens or after the library closes. And then in the warmer months, hopefully we can do it outside in the green space. But that's kind of what we're sitting at now. Patty and I were contemplating starting at the end of January. She's in the middle of the concert yet for the holidays, so she wanted to wait until maybe the mid to late January before we get started with that. Then we also have been contacted by someone that has a therapy dog. She's in the process of getting it recertified because she had moved out of state for a while. Now she's back in the state, and so she's getting recertified. And I'm hoping to provide periodic events for reluctant readers, get some experience working with reading and talk reading to the dog. So we're gonna hopefully schedule something in the near future for that as well. And then finally, in preparation for the 2025 summer reading performer that we normally have like in August, they are offering a performer showcase on December 3rd, and it's going to be on Zoom through Northern Waters. It's a $20 fee, and it will be able to watch all the performers and choose one that we feel would be a good fit to Iron River. So if the board's okay with that, I was gonna use $20 to put towards that webinar and that performance showcase.
What's that called again, Jackie?
It is a performer showcase, and it's taking place at on December 3rd. I think it's the majority of the day, so there's quite a few acts lined up that we'll be able to watch and get a feel for which ones we would like to hire for, because we do usually have one performer that we hire for August at the end of the summer reading. So that is what I have at the moment. Oh, and I forgot to mention the bills that we were discussing. This is a list of those and things of each, if the board would like to approve those.
Is that the same as this?
No, that is money that you approved the last month and was spent.
So why don't we all have a copy of that?
It's what I usually write up, and I verbally explain it to you, but if you want, I can do that in the future. Have a list of, does everyone want a copy of the bills also, just a copy of the list of?
No,
Okay, okay.
just don't recall it being done this way in the past.
That's really annoying.
Okay. Thank you,
Yes, that's all I have, Ben, sorry.
appreciate that. So let's move on to the bylaw changes from the old business. So everybody has the bylaws that we discussed. We discussed most of these last month, and what we wanted to do was wait until everybody had a chance to look them over. And you can see that the changes that are going to be made are in blue. Thank you for doing that. We also said that we were going to be just sending this by the advice of Chris Turner, who works for the law library in the University of Wisconsin and is basically an expert on library law in Wisconsin, just to see if he had any thoughts. And we did get a response back from him, and some of the things he didn't really say too much. I'm happy to send anybody the email that he wrote to us about. There's some good ones out there, there's other good policies, he didn't have anything major.
Hold on a second, I apologize, hold on a second. There we go.
Just to say he didn't have anything major to say about us, and I think there's something in here that we've incorporated from what he said, but basically it was good to go. We also, Jackie and I also, we sent it by John Thompson. So in addition to what we said last month, we thought, why don't we just also send it by the person who is now working for, doesn't work for Northern Waters, but he's sort of the
He's,
temporary person.
yeah, he's the head of the IFLS library system
In Eau Claire.
in Eau Claire.
He's the head of the Eau Claire division, and just to send things by, just to make sure we're not really missing anything. And so we got feedback from two different sources. So this is the result of that. And the idea tonight is to just, if anybody has any more questions, and if we don't have a lot of questions or discussion, then we can approve the bylaw changes to the library. One of the things that I realized that we say on here is, for example, the size of the board. I was just looking at that. Of seven members on the first page. As I've stated earlier, I'm not sure what the town of Iron River board is going to do about that, whether they're going to make it a 5-person board, which is what we have right now, but our bylaws have said before that it's 7, and so we can pass this in my opinion anyway. We have 7, we have to say something, and then should that change from the town, depending on what they do over the next couple of months, then we can change it. So that's one thing I noticed. And a lot of the other things that we've all talked about, and people have given feedback from this board and from these other people that we've asked about it, that know a lot about library bylaws in Wisconsin. A lot of them are smaller changes of typos and things like that.
A question,
Mm-hmm.
who gets all this information from all these people? Only you get that information?
Yes, and we have the bylaw, you're the bylaw committee, correct?
Yes.
The bylaw committee person would look through those and just added these.
So
But
you two are the only ones that get to see
No.
all this information that you claim you've received?
David?
I think, John, it's more like doing our homework. Nobody's trying to keep any secrets. We're trying to get opinions as to the appropriateness of the language from other professional librarians and library groups. And I think it's being diligent to make sure that we don't put something in the bylaws that's not legal.
But it's not diligent on my part to want to make sure about the information that you receive.
Okay, so,
You could have asked them the same thing yourself.
so would you like me to send all correspondence to you that we've received from these outside experts? If so, then if you're not comfortable with passing this tonight, it will go on the agenda for the December meeting. If you're not comfortable with it, and that with the due diligence of the committee that's working on this, we have from my perspective, there's no hidden agenda or anything, but I'm more than happy to take the emails that we have received, send those to you, and you can look it over and we can put it on redo it for December, if you would like to. Yes, David?
I think everybody on this board has had a copy of this since our last meeting last month. My issue is that we all agree on the language. That's why we wanted to have it printed, so we all had the same idea, the same information as to what we want to pass. And I don't know that the process by which we verify the appropriateness of what's in the bylaws should postpone us another month. I don't see any reason for doing that.
John?
except you keep using the word all. And I don't know that I think I voted no on that.
I'm sorry, all, when you.
I'm
you
talking
mean-
about all got copies.
Everybody had access to this.
To review before this meeting tonight.
Right.
Okay.
And are you not, so are you stating that you are not comfortable with what's written here?
No, I'm saying that you're demanding that I trust.
No, I'm not demanding anything. I'm asking, if you don't trust, if you are not comfortable with what we have written, then say that. That the wording in this bylaws, if you are not comfortable as a board member, you get to say what you would like about it. And then if you're not comfortable, let's talk about it and figure out what to do. Wendy?
I'd just like to interject, you know, when we started working on this, I took it home and I looked at this, I looked at the library trustees handbook, I looked at Northern Waters, I looked at several different things before I came up with my suggestions. And I think you are more than capable of doing the same thing. And if you don't trust it, I beg you to please do the same thing. But if you don't choose to do the same thing, I don't wanna keep going over this month after month.
Here's my problem. There are 4 of you and 1 of me. So even if I do all this work, all this homework, and I have an opinion that is different than yours, I get voted down anyway. So my trust level here is that you say here, everybody is entitled, but there are 4 of you and only 1 of me, so it's not a democracy, it's a mob.
No, sorry, I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm going to stop you there. I don't wanna have this kind of discussion. This is a democracy, this is voting, this is, every item, every single thing we do is not 4 and 1. It is 5 people making decisions at this library on every issue that we have, and that includes this one. So if there are do you have major concerns, or do you have any concerns? Do you have enough concern about this written, that we've been doing for, about 3 months? If you have some serious concerns, I'd like to hear about them. We all would like to hear about them and discuss as a board. It doesn't matter if things are 4 to 1 or anything. This literally is a democracy on every single item that we do. And
I guess I just wanna say, I'm kind of insulted that you're saying it's 4 to 1. I didn't make an agreement with any person on this board, not one of you. When I'm here, I'm doing my best to represent the laws of the state of Wisconsin for libraries. I'm not voting or speaking for anybody other than Wendy Furtak.
so, what else would you like to, is anything else, any further discussion on this?
Might as well vote on it.
David, anything?
If it's in order to make a motion, I would move that we approve the amended language that's been distributed.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Wendy. Any further discussion? Yeah.
I would just like to thank those who put the time and energy into creating this, and David and the committee.
And Wendy
Wendy,
put in a lot of
for
time on it.
putting in this time and making sure that we've got a document that will hold water for a length of time, for, going forward. So, thank you very much.
Good. Any further discussion? Let's take a vote. All those in favor of approving the bylaws, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Motion is carried. Approved. Excellent, thank you. New business, election of officers. So we also have a nomination committee that, so we'd like to hear from our nomination committee to discuss the nominations you have for.
Well, as you probably recall.
This is our annual meeting, by the way.
This is our annual meeting, so we elect officers. So as you recall, the bylaws.
Where's the cake?
I knew I forgot something.
streamers.
Some cake. Yeah, me too.
So the bylaws call for a nominating committee. There was originally a three-person committee, but in the meantime, between the committee being formed and now, two of the members of that committee resigned from the board. So I am the committee. I have solicited Twisted Arms to come up with a slate of officers that I would like to recommend for next year, for 2025. And as president, it would be Jeff Holte. As secretary, it would be me. Treasurer, Lindy Furtak, and vice president, Jan Lee. They have agreed enthusiastically to serve. And nominations are open from the floor at this time.
Is there any discussions or comments from the candidates? Or discussion about these?
I'd like
We
to
can
thank
vote.
my mother and my high school English teacher.
Not gonna
Mrs.
go in
Dockwell.
minutes, but you are being broadcast, I guess. Any other speeches or?
No, thank you.
So what, why don't we do this one by one? Let's start with the treasurer. All those in favor? We've already had a discussion, right?
So there are no more nominations from the floor?
Are there any other nominations?
Okay.
Do you have to ask that 3 times like you do it?
Are there any other nominations? And are there any other nominations? And I would just ask if there are any other comments or feedback anybody has. So let's start with Wendy for treasurer. All those in favor of Wendy as treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The motion carries. All those for Jan as vice president of the board, all those in favor of Jan for vice president, say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No. Motion carries. All those in favor of David as secretary of the library board, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. All those in favor of myself as president of the library board, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I abstained. My own vote. Motion carries. That's it, right?
That's it. That's it. We have
Okay, thank
officers-
you.
We have officers for next year. Thank you for serving.
Yeah, and
Ditto, thanks everybody.
and thank you for the work on that committee. Okay, we're going to just talk for a minute about the volunteer policy, which you have in front of you, and Jackie's going to just talk us through that a little bit.
Are you skipping one?
On the bill,
Oh,
presentation of
Proposed budget. We can do that. Do that first. Yes, the proposed budget, which you all have in front of us. I just want to comment that this is the proposed budget to the town, and that's not finalized yet. So the town is still working on the entire budget for the town, of all the different departments and so on. And so this is the draft. Jackie, would you like to just talk a little bit about it, or give us some highlights, and maybe we can all ask questions about it?
Other than the top, technology, books, DVDs, and programs, those are the 3 new lines that we have. The rest is pretty much what we've had in the past, and everything is pretty much set in stone, no movement or give in them, just because that's, you paying for heat, you pay for heat, so that's what they have. So the only lines that have any kind of wiggle room in it are wages, and then, of course, the technology line. Those were the only 2. Now we have the addition of books and DVDs, programs, so that when we have those come through and go across the board, we will be able to tally those and follow those expenses as well. And the new to us not town clerk, but auditor will be happier because everything will be a little more sectioned out so that it's more self-explanatory.
Because it was really in one basket before, like,
Yeah.
a whole bunch of things were in one thing, which didn't
Yes, and
actually
that's,
describe
it wasn't.
what they were.
The new auditor for the county is very much of a black and white person, there's no gray areas. And so all having everything in one basket in technology was very difficult for him.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're being able to have a little bit more direction
Yeah.
in that regard.
Is there, Jackie, is there another, half of the budget that, or can you, predict or, estimate what your revenues will be? So we know what the, we've got in terms of what bills we're sending to the town, what's going through, what's going out. But any sort of understanding of what grant monies we might be, that we will be getting, that might be included in the budget to sort of show us how this balances out, or how it doesn't balance out necessarily, but how we know where we are with incoming funds?
Well, we will have incoming from about, I think, 20,000 from the county for the fence and the roof for the green space. If the grant comes through for the plants, that's about $500. We have asked for, I believe it's 30,000 from Douglas County, but that's at 100%. So we're gonna get 70% of that. And I think we asked for about 40 from the county for library service, so we should be getting about 70% of that as well.
It's just that it's not known at this point.
It's
So
not.
This is the known budget to
This
submit to
is
the
the
town.
known, yeah, and this budget includes the plan of monies that we will be getting from Douglas County and Bayfield County,
And Bayfair County.
so,
Thank you.
Because we get those every year.
yes.
The amount varies somewhat, but.
Yeah, it varies somewhat, but yeah, they always send us
And
70%.
Question, just clarification. Budget 2024 versus estimate 2024. You're estimating you're gonna be almost $5,000 over budget?
We had that 10,000 from Douglas County that was not taken into effect for the original budget of 2024. So according to the current budget, it has it as being over, but we had that $10,000 that came in, and that wasn't accounted for originally when they made up this budget.
So in that case, you will actually end 2024 under budget.
We should, yes.
So it should be 10% or whatever the amount is they thought of on top of that amount, not on top of any other amount. If it only comes in at $130,000 and they want a 10% increase, it should be based on that amount. Correct?
The 10% increase that you're referring to, where is that coming from?
There has to be a number somewhere, fill in the blank. However, whatever percentage of increase they added on here, it should be added on to what the actual final number is, not on what this proposal is. It looks like it's what, 130, it's 10,
Yeah, it should be
it's about 10%, isn't it?
Between, are you talking about between 134 and 145,000?
Yeah, I'm just saying, on what is that new budget estimate, what is the new budget number based on if you're going to be under budget for 2024?
Well, may I?
Yes.
As I'm looking at it, payroll has gone up because payroll always goes up. And then when they separated out what Jackie said in the beginning, up at the top, the, technology, well, technology pretty much, is just only $500 more. But books and programs, are new line items.
But
Yeah.
those would have typically been included in in a bundle before,
Yes.
and now they're just broken out.
Yeah, no, they're broken up.
So the estimate will be even more then.
Well, the estimate is gonna be that the addition of the Douglas County funds are now included in the 2025 proposed budget.
Okay, but
Because
like you
they're
said,
broken out, yeah.
when do the books and programs get added in?
They've just been added in for the 2025 budget.
We didn't have any of those.
We
So
didn't have
those
those
are
lines
already a part of the 145,000 that's listed for the budget for 2025.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't think we really need to vote on this right now. I think it's more of a discussion item because it's just a tentative budget.
Yeah, it's just a
anyway.
tentative and just to keep everyone abreast of what the potential is, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Are there any other questions people have? And also, we can take this home and look it over. Bring things to another meeting and discuss this. The budget is a big part of our responsibility as this board, so. And I would just want to say I really appreciate the meeting with the town, the time taken for that, and also that you're just breaking things out, and this is just making things clear and great.
Yeah, the town, Carolyn reminded me that town budget is gonna be looked at on next Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have a program at the same time, so I'm not gonna do that, yes.
So this is what we're requesting.
Yes, this
Requesting
is,
from-
what we're, there's a few lines that are not set in stone yet, that they're still
Yep.
planning on yet. Not specifically for the library budget, for the whole budget as a county.
But
for the whole
this
town.
is what is going to be presented to the board.
Yes,
Yes.
as far as I know, yeah.
Okay.
That's what was submitted by the library, and the library director to the town board.
It has been?
This is,
Yeah.
a proposed budget has been submitted, this has been submitted to the town board
Okay.
for their discussion to mix it in with the whole budget.
And I might just say, thanks for such a good job, Jackie, because I know you worked hard on it, and I was bugging you a lot, so I could understand it.
Well, no, I'm glad you asked, because then I was able to, we were able to discuss it well.
Yes, so thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the volunteer policy. Do you want to just talk a little bit about, we've talked about this as a board before. There, as you can see, if you have it in your packet about the volunteer policy, there was one approved in 2021, and there was an updated and reviewed in 2023 and so on. So would you like to just tell us what's new and what we should?
Well, there's two different policies here. One is from East Troy. They're both from Wisconsin Libraries.
Oh, so
The one from
sorry,
East
that's
Troy,
that's East Troy.
yeah, it's 4
We don't have
pages, a little more in depth, giving more provisions about what volunteers do, an actual application for volunteers, as well as a code of ethics. The Baldwin one was more or less just a straightforward pre-employment background check inquiry that you're giving permission to do the background check. I wasn't sure how in-depth of a policy the board wanted to go with when we discussed about having background checks for people going forward. So that's why I gave you a one that's very
Yeah.
straightforward, and the other's a little more longer and more exacting. And if you guys want to just take these home and we
Think
can
about it.
discuss this more, we can do that too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really, in my opinion, I'd like to hear from the board about this, but if we really need a committee for this policy, I'm feeling that you could put together something for us based on what,
Yeah,
that kind of makes sense. My 2 cents is to try to keep it fairly simple.
okay,
But rigorous enough to say, to have the background check built into it, and I think a question that comes up in some other committees that I've been on lately is about who pays for that and so on, and so that that's clear about who pays for the background check and things like that, but keeping it simple. So that's just I'm just throwing out the idea that you put together something for next meeting and send it
Okay.
out, maybe before the meeting, so we can have a chance to look at it.
Okay. I did talk
I don't
to,
know what the thoughts are of the board, but.
I did check in with Matt, who's currently the police chief, but he's gonna be moving on. But as of right now, he didn't charge me for the one background check I asked him to look into, but he just looks at the state of Wisconsin. It doesn't go in depth beyond the state of Wisconsin. So, and he didn't charge me anything for it, he just looks it up on the computer and lets me know if there's something. If you want a more in-depth one, then that's probably when the costing will have to come in, and I'll have to find out how much that is exactly with the county, if the board wants to go that route. A more in-depth one.
Yeah, another committee that I'm on right now, working on the idea of having, as a county-wide thing done by, I'm not exactly sure who, but it's about $15 a person. And that's pretty in-depth with Wisconsin,
Okay.
and I think some other things, but I'll check on that.
Okay.
To see if that might be something we can tap into, so that it might be more than Wisconsin.
Okay.
You know, cause I'm being from education, background checks are a very big deal, including FBI checks and many things, so.
Right.
I'd just like to say, if I had a choice, I would really like to see the volunteers sign the code of ethics. I think it's very important, and I think it's easy, but it also shows we've gone over it with them, and that might be my banking background, but I think ethics is pretty important.
Okay, all right.
And I would say too, that I think it's really important that we encourage the high school students, or, you know, to come and volunteer for, I like seeing this, why, you know, why do you wanna volunteer, what do you think, like basically, reasons for seeking volunteer work. It's a great way for them to learn how to do an interview, first of all, at a very more relaxed setting, but also to encourage what they may be applying for colleges or universities, and they need things on the resume that will show that they're active in their communities. So if we can work on hiring at least one high schooler, or, you know, who's, you know, I would encourage that.
Okay.
So what's our next step then?
Our next step would be for you to work, that, this is just my suggestion, that you
We could
work
come up
on
with-
taking
okay.
some of those thoughts and coming up with a draft
Okay, I can do that.
application, and, process, really, the procedures for it, including an application.
Okay.
And then the process of what would happen, that we could do at our December meeting.
And then we can discuss it at December.
Yeah, and then we can approve it at the next meeting when we see our own version,
Or revise it.
or revise it, or, exactly. Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to one of the last items. And this is related to the material selection policy, which you have in front of you. And this has a long history, but I will just say that from my perspective, this is overall, there's a question about whether we did pieces of this over the last year. We've done pieces of this. In my opinion, it was never completely approved, but that doesn't really matter. This was not approved as a whole by this board. There's not a record of that being approved, but pieces were. So, but that's not terribly relevant, but there are concerns that David has brought up. David and I and John were all here during this time of doing all of these things. David has brought up some concerns. I took some of those concerns along with some of my own, and I made some suggested ideas for modifying this. We're not going to be deciding anything on this tonight. This will really be a first reading of this, or really a first discussion of this, so that everybody can, first of all, one, hear what some of the concerns about it is. This is the one that is on the website currently right now. And the edits, and not edits, but some of the lines that should be things to be added or things that are suggested by me, having listened to the concern. But now we also have a chance to hear about concerns from everyone on the board, not only tonight. So let's do an initial discussion of this. We'll describe the concerns we have. Everybody gets a chance to talk about it for a few minutes. We're not going to spend a huge amount of time tonight discussing this, but I'd like you to take it with you and come back at the next meeting so we can do a second review of this and decide on any changes that would be made in this material selection policy for the library. So to get started, I'll mention a few things, but maybe you want to go through a couple of the items of concern, and I'm happy to jump in on that as well. So again, I know that some of you are new and haven't read through the whole material selection policy, but so that's why this is really just an initial review. And so basically right now, I just want to talk about the concerns that some of us have about the policy and some suggested ideas. If there are other suggested ideas for changes or comments, great, let's get it out there and we can do it next month. So the first on the second page, we have some changes about, you want to comment on that?
Sure.
Few, and then Jackie has a couple of thoughts about that too.
Well, as you can see, there's nothing on the first page. The second page talks, right at the top of the page, it talks about how reviews are a major source of information about new materials. And it talks about sources of reviews. And then there's a list of sources: book list, book looks, Kirkus, Library Journal, Claremont Review. But in that list are two publishers. They're not review publications, they're publishers, and I don't think they belong on a list of reviews. And those, Little Patriot Press and Regenerate are the two. And so my suggestion would be that we just strike those up.
I agree.
Okay, and then do you want to just mention the other two that you were commenting about?
The book looks, I am not familiar with that. The Claremont Review is a conservative reviews. I am not sure what I haven't had a chance to go dig into their policy as to how they choose their reviewers, if they are vetted in some way. So that is something that the other publications, School Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, they do vet their reviewers and have a process of making sure that they are educated on the subjects that they are going to be reviewing. So I just have not had a chance to follow up with Claremont Review to see if that was actually something that they do with their reviewers before.
Okay, so, and I'll get to you in 1 second. So book looks you're not familiar with.
I'm not familiar with that.
So what one thing I would just throw out is that you check on both of those.
I will check on both
to see
those.
with what you were just saying, if that's true or not true, but the idea that it's conservative or not conservative, to me is not, they're very important, that's okay.
It does,
I like-
yeah, it's just a matter of, I want to see how they, like I said, vet their reviewers.
So maybe you could give us an update on that for next time. John?
Did you go through the same process for the other ones that are liberal? I mean, you identified Claremont Review as conservative, so I guess I can assume the others are liberal. Did you go through them with the same process?
They were publications that have
So you didn't?
stood out for over 30 years as used by librarians to review materials. They vet their reviewers, they check into their background to be sure that they are knowledgeable in the field that they are reviewing. That is what I am familiar with through my education and my experience. So that is why I am not reviewing them as much as I will be reviewing Claremont Review and Book Looks.
Okay, and I wouldn't say, I'm not an expert, I'm not a librarian, so I don't know, but I'm guessing that these are, I'd like to be careful of the use of liberal and conservative, because I think, like, for example, the school library journal, that I do know a lot more about, having been a school person for 45 years, but, and in charge of libraries, but that's not really a liberal or conservative. This isn't about liberal or conservative. This
No.
is about
She brought it up.
Right.
I brought
So-
it up.
That's right, so but I'm just saying that we should just be careful about that, and just have good sources, whatever
yes.
the political leaning, so. Okay.
May I, just one little typo.
Oh, no.
Kirkus. Kirkus is Kirkus.
Oh, thank you for that. I haven't even paid attention to that.
Why are you a little bit smarty?
Well, I worked in books for many years.
Yeah. Okay, so down to request to buy, and again, this is just an initial review. 5 or more patrons request a certain book or resource, that items shall be purchased as requested.
I had mentioned that's kind of an unwritten rule. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's something that the librarians in the 2 library systems that I've dealt with kind of use that as a kind of a gauge whether it's time to go out and buy your own copy if you've had at least 5 people say they want that book.
So my concern with that is that then this is a rule, like then we are saying it. So
Yeah.
a guideline
It's
is
a
one
guideline.
thing.
Yeah, it's not a rule.
For
It's
us
just
to
kind of
say
a-
it, do we wanna say it so that means that every time that happens? Because wouldn't there be circumstances where that might not be the case? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, my concern is it's not consistent with the criteria for selection. There's a fairly detailed list of criteria for selection, and if some group of 5 people comes in and
Yeah.
requests something that doesn't fill any of the criteria, I don't think you should be obliged to buy it.
Yes.
Right.
And so that's why I think it should be.
I wonder if that's in there mainly, like for, like, you know, if a title hits and it's really popular, and all of a sudden you've got a bunch of people coming in and asking for it.
Yes.
I mean, of course, it's up to your discretion as the library director to decide to purchase that book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it needs to be,
But it's not really if it's in here like this.
right, I mean, yeah, it's not, like, I don't think it necessarily needs to be
Yeah.
codified in,
That's right, because it takes away her discretion.
right, your discretion to
said
say, yeah, I think we should get this book, or
Yes.
we can't get it right now, but we'll get it through the library loan until we can, or whatever, you know, I mean, that's up to you to problem solve that,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion.
John?
Only because you brought up the criteria. Timelessness and permanent value. I borrowed a child's science DVD that was so outdated regarding the planets, and yet there it was. I didn't go out of my way to borrow that. So I don't know if that goes under what's the term, weeding, or if it's to begin with. Was there a problem? Was it timeless when it was purchased? I'm just, I'm concerned about timeless and permanent value. It just doesn't seem to me that we, I'm not a library scientist, but it just seems that I would have a problem figuring out whether or not something was timeless and permanent.
Where is it? I know I read that somewhere, John, where is it in this?
It's right here. under
It's our criteria for
criteria
selection.
Oh, there it is,
So-
okay.
So this isn't I have just a question really, like, you're just generally looking at it, like, is this book going to last, like, be relevant for a while, right? So I think
For
that's
a
what it's
while.
meant. Well, I
Timeless.
mean, you can't, who knows what
Yeah.
like a book might,
Then the word timeless is not appropriate.
I
Yeah.
think those, if I'm putting it out there, I'm thinking that that might be pertaining more to classic books like Hemingway, like Steinbeck, those would be considered, timeless and of permanent value because they stood the test of time. Shakespeare, that
Literary
type of thing.
classics.
Science
Scientific.
books specifically, I do not consider, to have permanent value or timelessness because things change so readily that we can't always assume that something is correct.
So kind of back to John's point is that we still buy science books,
Yes.
but you wouldn't necessarily use that criteria
That
for
particular line of
for
criteria,
that type
correct.
of book.
Right.
But you might for some other types of books.
Right.
That
Do,
would be an
do we
important.
want to consider putting a parentheses there, like literary classics, and, or we just leave it as it is? Like,
Yeah,
Or
we're talking about classic
permanent value,
literature.
or as appropriate, or
Or-
something, I
yeah.
don't know.
I don't know.
I'm okay just leaving it in. I have always taken it to represent the classics for the timelessness, things that, I just got done reading, Virginia Woolf from 1927, and some people feel this is a timeless collection, a permanent part of the library. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it has stood the test of time because people are still reading it, still studying it, still discussing it in many ways. So whether I like the book or not, I feel like it has stood the test of time and it should be a part of some collection so that people can.
Well, that particular example wouldn't fill any of these other criteria, so you have to have something about
Yeah.
timelessness.
So
So you
maybe
couldn't
it
have
should
any
be
of the
timeless.
classics.
Maybe it should be timeless and or permanent value then. Because so far I haven't heard that it's both.
Well, I'll put that down as a possibility, it's in here as the notes. So, yeah, good point. So some things are timeless, some things of the criteria are not timeless, like depending on the situation. Okay, great. And if there's anything else as we go along, or as you go home and look at it over the next couple of weeks, that would be great if you see other things like that. All right, so going to page 3.
I didn't have anything on page 3, I
We
don't
don't have, there's nothing on page 3, page 4. So the first, it's really the fourth bullet point about, so we're now in the section about challenge procedures. In the fourth bullet point, the library will accommodate individual parent requests to restrict specific titles or materials to one's child.
Typically, the library cannot do that. I had suggested putting a note on the record of a child, but I was informed that that would be a violation of a child's First Amendment rights, whether that child is 18 or I should say 17, or whether that child is 5. So the best way for parents to restrict specific titles and materials would be them to accompany their child to the library and be present when they are choosing their materials.
I understand.
Absolutely, I agree.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think the other thing that I would add to that is that from that point of view is very well taken. And also, it's just not that realistic. Like, there could be, it's not that shouldn't be your job.
No.
And it just like on a practical level, it doesn't work. So again, think about that. Down to materials, I'll talk about add in a minute, where it says add, the question mark. Down to once the reconsideration has been received. Within 7 days, where we're saying once the reconsideration of the library materials form has been received, the library director will compile support documents within 7 days to the patron requesting reconsideration. So there's just the idea of that instead of issuing the complaint, it's really just wording. The director will promptly notify the board of trustees of every request. I mean, I think David has a good point about complaint. It's a request, but
It's a request for reconsideration, and we're to be consistent in the language.
the language,
I have a question.
yeah.
What would, the library director will compile support documents, that language, what does that encompass?
A lot of times it's bringing out reasons why I chose that book, whether it was well reviewed, whether, that would be the big thing. The reviews would be from professional reviews as to why I considered it to be something that would be purchased, as well as, maybe explain the community as a whole as to why this would be a benefit, but that mainly with regards to reviews and the supporting documents as saying why this book was accurate information, whether it had words are escaping me right now, but the main thing would be accurate information.
Thank you.
And then you have the whole selection criteria, what's all the selection criteria did you use as well to do that book? Or material?
Right.
Okay, so the next little section there is just sort of a rewording of that paragraph that you can see below that has like a draft cross out. It's just trying to make it cleaner. If the satisfactory resolution cannot be reached, or a satisfactory resolution cannot be reached, the reconsideration request may be appealed to the Board of Trustees. So that's really what the next paragraph says, although the next paragraph said it will be placed on the agenda at the next regular board meeting, but that's kind of complicated.
Well, the paragraph following that says that the board will get the form and supporting paperwork no
10
less than
days.
10 days prior to the meeting where we're gonna discuss it. If the request for reconsideration comes in less than 10 days before the next meeting, it's not possible to put it on the agenda for that meeting. So, you can't reconcile placing it on the agenda for the next regular meeting if there are less than 10 days for the board to review it.
Because we wouldn't be completing the policy, we wouldn't be following the policy. So that's the idea there. Board of Trustees will review the material in question as a whole, not out of context, discussion, and any necessary action will be taken by the Board of Trustees at that time. So that is consistent, I think, what has already happened.
So would it be a matter of just changing 10 days to 2 days?
Now, I want more than 2 days to review it.
Yeah.
No, before the next regular meeting. Okay, so in the same way the agenda has to be in 2 days before the actual meeting, make this so that way, if it's not 10 days, fine. 2 days, sorry, it's gonna have to wait till the next meeting. 2 days is okay, all right? Yeah, it seems to me it shouldn't be just done away with altogether. There should be a time limit so that the board can be aware and that it can be put on the agenda.
I see what you're saying.
I'll make a note of that for consideration, so people we can think about that, bring that back up.
Making
again.
it less than making the, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure I
I'm not sure I'm
understand the
understanding what
point.
the request is here. The paperwork for the review, no less than 10 days prior to the next meeting. So in other words, a week and a half before the next meeting is the deadline for receiving
The supporting materials. and
supporting the
everything.
paperwork from the library director.
Mhm.
So, what are you saying that we just need it 2 days ahead of time?
If 10 days is too much, is 2 days too little? The 2 days was an arbitrary number I came up with, but I'm
Yeah.
saying if there's a problem with 10 days, but we should try to get it into the next available board meeting as soon as possible. If 2 days is not enough, how about 3 days, 4 days? At least so it can have a more immediate, response from the board, rather than 10 days, it didn't make it, so now you have to wait a month and a half before it can happen again.
Can we make it 5 days, or, I mean, a suggestion, or whatever number of days, consider the amount of time that it needs.
Yeah, exactly. If 10 is not right, then what is the correct number?
Yeah,
I
and there is
thought,
no correct number.
I thought the issue was not so much that 10 days is too long, it's that this new language doesn't address bringing it forward at the next regular meeting. Is that what you're asking for?
It wouldn't, if we put the number of days in, right, then it wouldn't, whatever we say, it's gotta be 5 days.
In my mind,
8
the
days.
fact that it would come to that level, that it would be a complaint that is appealed to the board, I don't think there should be any day, any time limit there. It should be on the next board meeting, because it's an immediate thing that needs to be taken care of. All right? But if you're going to put some days there, okay, well then let's 3, 4 days, I don't know. But it should be, it's an immediate, situation. It should be handled as quickly as possible.
Yep,
I agree that it needs to be handled as quickly as possible. I guess in my thought process, I was thinking that if you had 10 days or whatever the days were that would be decided, you would have time to research it and get some better understanding of the situation. Because if it's only 2 days, I'm not retired, I still work. I don't know if I could do due diligence as far as researching it, to be able to come up with an answer to these people.
Are you assuming because I'm retired, I don't have anything to do?
No, I'm not, that was not directed at you, John, it was just saying that my time is limited. And I like to research down, I really like to get to the bottom of it.
and this is
And this is
this would be a
important.
very important
Yes,
board decision to make, that
right.
deserves a lot of thought. How much thought? Why don't we just think about the number of days? And we'll just come back to that. So I think everybody, it seems to me, has agreed it needs as immediate as possible. But given the gravity of what this would entail as a board decision, also deserves some time and thought and carefulness. And that means time for everybody on the board. So everybody can think of a number. But I feel pretty strongly, and we all have to make a decision, is that it shouldn't automatically be at the next board meeting, because it could be 1 day, and I do not think that is enough.
Well, it would have to-
Time.
It would have to be at least 2 days, because the agenda has to.
The agenda, yeah, with the agenda, and that is not enough time to think about whether we are going to remove a chair from the library. Okay, so we'll come back to that. We have a note on that, and what exactly would that look like? We can hopefully come to some quick agreement about that at the next meeting. Okay, so I think the Board of Trustees reserve the right to limit the length of any discussion and the number of speakers at the meeting. Those are mostly things that we've already agreed on. An item will be considered for review once in a 12-month period unless there is a different concern with the same book. And that's a different from, there's something new. So if people cannot submit something more than once a year unless there's a different concern that you have about the same book. That's suggested. Okay, so on to the form that we have for reconsidering on page 5. One of the things that has been discussed by a lot of people, and I feel it myself, we've already passed in the last month the idea that this information, if you submit this form, it is public. So that's already done. That's not a discussion item. What this is just saying on the form is to let people know that when they're filling out the form. So the wording that we have, and we can work on this wording or whatever we vote on. Requests for reconsideration are considered public information subject to the Wisconsin Public Records Law. That way people are not going to be surprised by the fact that we already passed that we're following the law and that this information when you submit is public. We're just letting people know on the form before they fill it out. That's it. David?
I remember a discussion somewhere about each request for reconsideration. Each item subject to a reconsideration request has to have its own form. You can only, there's one book on the form,
I kind of think I read that too.
but it's not in here, and I don't remember.
I think it might be in the, essentials of library trustees.
But I think there should be language in there better than what I just said.
Okay, I just have added that as a general concept and we can work on the wording for next month. Yeah, so each item has its own form. I agree. I almost think that was in a policy that we've had from this library before, but I'm not sure. So we can find that and word that. Anything else? Concerns or ideas? Okay, great. So think about that and we will come back to that at the December meeting. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for those discussions. Does someone have a motion to move into the closed session?
I'll make a motion to move into closed session.
Okay, we have a motion to move into closed session.